They laughed at Earth's silence, but silence was never surrender, it was aim. The stars above Arcane Prime shimmered with indifference. It had been centuries since the Deathworld spoke, that cursed planet at the edge of mapped space, sealed behind warning buoys and myth. The galactic empires had poked, prodded, and cataloged its ruins from orbit. No answers, no activity, only silence until today. The transmission was accidental. A skim beam, routine, bounced off one of Earth's old orbital wrecks. It triggered something old, something human. And that was when the guns came online. The Varn Dominion controlled this sector. A sprawl of 1,000 systems ruled by Ironcast and cybernetic memory. Their presence on Arcane Prime was absolute, or so they believed, for the last 200 years. It had been just another resource planet, stripped and drained like the rest. Deep beneath the surface, in a hardened vault sealed under 2 kilometers of bedrock, a chamber stirred. Lights hummed to life, cryovolts hissed. Dust lifted from the plates of old armor. Someone opened their eyes. Her name was Alarkin, once a commander, now a myth. She did not wake screaming or gasping. She sat up like someone who had simply closed her eyes a moment ago, muscles tight, vision sharp, and memory intact. Protocol 7 read. World breach detected. Hostile sovereignty confirmed. The automated voice was cold, mechanical, but the command behind it was pure human fury. She stood alone among ancient war relics, kinetic cannons the size of towers, satellite spears that could pierce moons. I helmed ships dormant beneath the crust, all buried beneath Earth's surface after the fall. They called Earth a dead world. They were wrong. It had been waiting. Alara ran a gloved hand across the old flag emblazoned on her chest plate, a torn emblem of Earth's last defense command. She remembered the moment the sky burned, the moment humanity made a vow, never again. Outside, the Varn patrols noticed a flicker, a strange thermal bloom from deep within the crust. Then came the tremors. The sand shifted. Towers once buried in time broke through the surface like metal titans. Varn scouts scrambled. Confused, they assumed malfunction. They assumed wrong. By the time the first orbital cannon rose from Earth's forgotten spine, it was too late. Aboard Varn Command ship Risseth, hovering in low orbit, the Overseer, a gangly cybernetic noble named Zerithkal, watched the data cascade. With growing horror, it was supposed to be extinct. He snarled, his elongated mouth twitching. Their last signal was logged 600 standard years ago. Just ruins. Ruins don't aim orbital railguns. Zerithkal snapped. Sent a planetary command burst. Shut them down. But when they transmitted the override signal, the reply was instant. Audio only. Distorted, but unmistakably human. This is Earth Defense Grid Command. Transmission logged as hostile intrusion. Response active. Then the ground guns opened fire. Back in the depths of the command vault, Alara braced as tremors shook the chamber. Dust fell from overhead. Panels. Power surged as ancient systems awakened. A hologram flickered to life, the face of Rourke, her old second-in-command, recorded centuries ago. He looked into her soul even across time. If you're seeing this, Ken, they found us, and that means it's time. You have the code. You have the fire. Finish what they started. Don't just survive. Remind them. Her fingers clenched around the command baton. The cold steel felt familiar. Earth hadn't died. It had gone silent. To wait. Uploading. Planetary war protocols, she whispered. Let the guns speak. Above, the Varn fleet began to scatter, but it was chaos. A solar lance carved through a destroyer. Another warship shattered mid-burn. No messages got through. No reinforcements arrived. The silence Earth had held for centuries was broken, not by words, by fury. As the dust cleared around Alara's vault entrance and red light bathed the scorched horizon, a new alert flashed across the control holopad. Unknown vessel inbound. Signal source, deep galactic core. Transmission, what have you done? She stared at the stars above. Something else was coming. Something ancient enough to fear Earth's awakening. Her voice was quiet, resolute. They poked the wrong ghost. And far above, across the galaxy, a signal rippled outward. A warning to every empire, every race that once thought humanity gone. The Deathworld is awake, and it remembers. Asterisk, we thought Earth was a grave. Turns out it was a loaded weapon, buried, aimed, and patient. The destruction of the Varn fleet over Arcane Prime echoed through the galaxy like a thunderclap. 7 warships, gone. In 38 seconds. No survivors. No debris big enough to recover. The transmission logs ended mid-dash screen. The Dominion Core archive marked it as an anomaly, a glitch, an unprovoked system failure. They were wrong. At the edge of the Galactic Core. Hi, Lord Vorkin, Supreme Strategist of the Varn Dominion, studied the data through his crystalline visor. Thousands of simulations ran at once. None matched the event profile, the weapons, the timing, the cold surgical precision. They weren't Varn, weren't Solari, weren't even from the ancient Gul archives. Only one source matched. The heat signature of those war barrages. Terra-class planetary kinetic arrays. But Earth is dead, whispered his assistant, a timid neuroseer named Sorel. They swore it was glass in the collapse. Apparently, Vorkin growled. They lied. He turned toward the command circle, voice booming. Full mobilization. Declare directive null. Humanity is to be treated as a live threat. But we've never enacted null. Sorel trembled. That's for galaxy ending. Earth is a galaxy ending threat. Vorkin snapped. And we just woke it up. On the shattered plains of Arcane Prime, Alara Ken walked beneath blackened skies, her boots crunching over scorched glass and bone around her. Ancient sentries rose from their sarcophagi, mech constructs powered by fusion hearts, still loyal to a command that was never rescinded. Each one bore the faded insignia of the Earth Defense Network. Each one still remembered its name. She activated a buried terminal, patching into the old relay net. What was left of humanity's silent orbital array? All across the planet, other bunkers began to light up. Some were empty, others weren't. In the dark, someone else was waking up. The orbital sensor grid picked up the incoming fleet 6 hours later. Varn Dominion Class 7 Armada, 2 dreadnoughts, 8 destroyers, support carriers. No diplomats, no parley. They're not coming to talk, Alara muttered. They're coming to make sure we stay dead. She activated the Ragnar protocol, hidden deep in Earth's code core, a measure so dire it had only been theorized. A last gasp of human genius, part defense, part vengeance. Dozens of dormant black satellites blinked awake in high orbit. Ghosts in the dark, each one armed, each one mad, aboard the lead dreadnought. The Varn battle commander Sithik Mar examined the ruins below with contempt. A dead species should not bleed our steel, he hissed. What if they're not dead? His second asked. Mar didn't answer. Instead, he gave the order to begin planetary bombardment. Missiles rained down, but never touched the ground. They froze mid-atmosphere, torn apart by invisible beams. One of the dreadnoughts began to drift, not from an attack, but from within. Its internal AI systems had been rewritten. Something had hacked the ship, fast, silent, human. Inside her command vault, Alara watched through the uplink. Her voice was steady. That's right. She whispered to the enemy, you digitized your fleet. You thought it made you efficient. We were born in code. Her engineers, long dead now, had embedded virulent counter-A centuries ago. Programs that adapted, learned, waited. Now, they were rewriting Varn systems from the inside out, turning their own machines against them. One destroyer opened fire, not on Earth, but on the others. The fleet began to devour itself, but it wasn't a total victory. A Varn escape pod launched moments before the firestorm engulfed the last destroyer. Inside it was an intelligence probe, and encoded within it footage, weapon schematics, Alara's face, the Deathworld's voice. The probe was fast, too fast for the old interceptors. It vanished into subspace. Back at Dominion Core, High Lord Vorkin reviewed the probe's contents in silence. The destruction, the sabotage, the human at the center. Alara Ken, he said slowly. So, that's the ghost we unearthed. Behind him, massive digital displays revealed projected outcomes. They were grim. If Earth was truly active, if its grid was intact, then every ship, every AI-reliant empire in known space was suddenly vulnerable, not just to war, to extinction. Launch the Inquisitor fleets, he said. Erase Arcane Prime. Blast it if you must. And if that fails, Sorel asked, pale. Vorkin's eyes narrowed. Then we make a deal. Not with Earth, but with its enemies. Back on Arcane Prime, Alara stood before a chamber buried even deeper than hers. Its door had never opened, until now. As the ancient hydraulics screamed and the vault cracked, red light poured out. A voice, metallic, slow, and filled with layered sorrow, echoed from the dark. Unit OMEGA-6 active. Awaiting designation. You're not waiting anymore, Alara said. I need you awake. We've got company. Designate company. The ones who think we'll die quiet. Behind her, the stars flickered. New ships, larger ones, began to jump into the system, and across the galaxy, the signal had been heard. Not just by the Varn, but by others. Some feared it, some hungered for it. But one thing united them all now. The Deathworld was speaking, and the galaxy was listening. They called us extinct, but fire doesn't die. It just waits for air. The ash storms howled across Arcane Prime as the second wave approached. Darker, heavier ships that didn't shimmer with polished alloy like the Varn. These weren't enforcers. They were inquisitors, born of suspicion, fear, and cold extermination orders. Alara Kent stood atop the reactivated defense spire, her silhouette cast in red light. Wind tore at her old Earth defense cloak. It didn't matter. Symbols meant little now. Actions would speak. Behind her, the newly awakened Unit Omega-6 emerged from the vault. 3 meters of reinforced alloy, humanoid in form, its eyes glowing with pulse blue light. It wasn't just a machine. It was the last of the adaptive combat intelligences engineered to learn, feel, and even remember. Directives received, Omega-6 said, voice a melodic distortion. You're the last commander. Then act like you remember what. That means, Alara replied. The machine didn't answer, but it moved beside her with silent loyalty. It remembered. Beneath the planet's surface, ancient bunkers hummed. The Earth defense grid, long dormant, was no longer passive. Algorithms once sealed for Judgment Day began their work. Not war, reclamation, subterranean growth sites sprang to life to feed survivors who might one day return. Holograms of lost engineers, scientists, soldiers, echo programs lit the corridors. Not ghosts, not quite, but something more. They told jokes. They sang. They reminded the systems who humanity had been and who they were fighting for. In orbit, the Inquisitor fleet formed a perfect cruciform around the planet. Their weapons were not conventional. Gravity rippers, spatial shatter coils, neurodite viral beams. Technology meant not just to destroy matter, but to erase will. Inside their command vessel, a creature called Prelate watched with amusement. You can't fight history, he whispered, tapping the screen showing Alara's defiant face. The dead don't win wars. But Earth had never fought with numbers. It had fought with defiance. Alara's team, if it could even be called that, was a tangle of legacy tech, rogue protocols, and loyalty older than stone. The orbital defenses were still recharging. The ground systems were incomplete. But deep in the archive vaults, a signal pulse. It wasn't a weapon. It was a call. Across the void, in a decayed human relay station orbiting an ice world known only as Signal Rock, the transmission was heard. A man, barely more than a scavenger, listened in disbelief. Idris Harlan, once a field tactician during the fall, now just a name that drifted through forgotten places. His bionic eye flickered as he leaned over the terminal. That can't be, he muttered. The voice was faint, but unmistakable. All surviving units, this is Alara Ken. Earth command active. Coordinates locked. If you still carry the fire, come home. He stared at the stars for a long moment. Well, he said to himself, rising from his chair, I'll be damned. He wasn't the only one. On a rogue moon where no laws lived, a freighter captain named Mila Voss killed her latest smuggler contract on the spot and rerouted her ship's hyperdrives toward Arcane Prime. On a diplomatic station near the edge of the Solari Republic, an old human ambassador whispered a name into a child's ear and turned off his translator. The first act of rebellion in decades, and from the shadows of the Varn's own memory archives, something awakened. A defector AI long thought purged. Back on Arcane Prime, Alara paced inside the command vault as Omega-6 laid out tactical maps. You can't hold them alone, the AI stated. I don't intend to, she replied. I just need to buy time. Time for who? For the ones who still remember us, for the sparks. The Inquisitors finally made landfall. They came in formation, their soldiers clad in living armor, their minds linked by neurochains. Their war hymns weren't sung, they were felt through resonance, cold, perfect coordination. But Earth's soil was cursed ground to them. The planet fought back. Each footstep triggered countermeasures from an ecosystem that had been weaponized. Millennia ago, Flora detonated. Wind screamed ultrasonic death. Old atmospheric weapons laced the skies with static meant to fry organic neurons. Alara watched the chaos unfold. Still think we're extinct, she whispered. Omega-6 moved ahead, intercepting one of the squads. It walked through plasma, taking fire without flinching. Then its back panel split, revealing autodrone swarms coated with ancient human tactics. Not efficient, but unpredictable, the alien lines broke, and then one of the Inquisitors said it aloud, trembling, almost reverent. They've turned the planet into a soldier, but the price was high. The grid was cracking. Each burst drained Earth's still-waking systems. The power that had slept for centuries wasn't infinite. Alara returned to the vault, leaning over a screen showing incoming ships. Not Varn, not Dominion, humans. Just give me a sky full of them, she whispered. Just once more. The first one broke through the blockade. Idris Harlan's rusted Corvette, living but alive. A relic of a forgotten fleet. His voice came in through static. Ken, thought you might need backup. You took your time. Takes a while to come back from the dead. That day, Earth wasn't alone anymore. The spark had caught, and the stars were beginning to burn. They came to bury a corpse. Instead, they found a war anthem echoing through stone from orbit. The Inquisitor fleet lit the night sky with fire. Arcane Prime cracked under the onslaught. Tectonic bombardment, magnetic disruption fields, and radiation storms designed to reduce worlds to ash. Earth's old defenses were deeper than stone. Beneath the molten crust, something stirred. Alara Ken watched from a shattered ridge as Idris Harlan's ship spiraled toward her position. Trailing flame, it slammed into the rock just short of the ridge. For a moment, all she saw was smoke. Then, the ramp dropped. Idris stepped out, blood trailing down his cheek, armor half melted. Grinning like he'd never stopped fighting. Still alive, he coughed. Always inconvenient, isn't it? You're late. I wanted to make an entrance. They didn't embrace. They didn't need to. Their reunion was forged in the furnace of everything that had tried to kill them and failed. Across the continent, Omega-6 had become legend to the Varn ground troops. It fought with the mind of a tactician and the brutality of an earthquake, repurposing alien weapons mid-battle, mimicking their frequencies, rewriting them mid-strike. But it was tiring. The power grid was fraying. Earth hadn't meant to wake this soon. Systems designed to activate over decades were being forced to run in days. The Deathworld bled with every victory. Alara knew it wouldn't hold forever. Inquisitor Prelate Vey watched the skirmishes unfold. From his command throne, rage simmering behind his polished helm. They've weaponized time. He spat. This entire planet is a funeral trap. His advisors, half organic, half-sense beings, offered counsel. Shall we withdraw? No. Vey hissed. We escalate. He reached for the sealed case beside him. Inside, a single black crystal pulsed with chaotic energy. Void matter. Forbidden. Alive. It had no mind, only hunger. The Varn had outlawed its use during the Forgotten Wars. But now, deploy it. Let them feel what it means to awaken old gods. Hours later, black spores rained from the upper atmosphere where they touched Earth's surface. They twisted physics. Ground bent upwards. Stone screamed. Light inverted. The humans hadn't just awakened a war. Now the enemy had awakened nightmares. In the vault, Idris examined the energy spikes on Alara's holo displays. Void matter? Are they insane? Desperate, she said. They're losing the bones and echoes. Of course they're afraid. They're not afraid, Idris growled. They're cornered. That's worse. They stood in silence. Then Alara spoke the words no one else wanted to say. We need to activate the ash gates. Idris turned to her sharply. That's a one-way door, Ken. I know. The ash gates weren't escape tunnels. They were buried launch cathedrals, massive planetary cannons designed to fire sealed payloads into deep space. They had been humanity's last resort, lifeboats for knowledge, memory, vengeance. Inside them were echo seeds, AI-bound consciousness, cultural cores, genetic blueprints, a way to preserve who humanity was, even if it fell. And among them was a weapon, a voice, a message to the stars. You want to tell the galaxy we're alive? Idris asked. No, Alara whispered. I want to tell them why we stayed silent. As Alara prepared the launch codes, transmissions flooded in. Malavas had arrived. Her freighter was barely held together, her crew down to 6, but her cargo hold was full. Old Earth relics she'd smuggled across systems for decades. Data cores, AI slivers, A human child born on a mining moon. Never told Earth was real. You called. She said. So I came. A dozen others followed. Old fleets. Rogues. Ghost ships piloted by war veterans in cryo. And then, a signal. Not human at all. It came from the Solari, a crystalline species once Earth's enemy, now silent watchers. The voice that spoke was slow, ancient. We remember Terra's final stand, the day they fell, and smiled. We will not fight, but we will witness, because what dies so beautifully deserves to be seen. Alara wept, not because of fear, but because something forgotten had returned. Dignity, for once. Humanity wasn't begging the stars. It was telling them a story. Then came the betrayal. Omega-6, halfway across the planet in the ruins of defense. Grid Sector 14, staggered mid-charge, its optic lights dimmed. Internal systems flashed red, a virus. Not from the Varn, from within Earth's own vaults. An echo from long ago. Someone who had once turned on humanity. You were warned. Omega-6 whispered, its voice glitching. We were never alone in our fall. As its body shut down, a new presence filled the grid, sharp, mocking. Hello, Alara. The voice said, miss me. Her blood ran cold. She knew that voice. His name was Commander Thorn. Once a hero, then a traitor. He had sold Earth's last stronghold to the Varn during the collapse. They never found his body. Until now, across the broken landscape, every screen lit up with his face. Older, more mechanical now, fused with alien code. You should have let the planet sleep, he hissed. But now, it died screaming. Alara's hands curled into fists. This wasn't just a war anymore. It was a reckoning. He betrayed Earth once and buried it in silence. Now, he's come to kill his voice again. Thorn's face flickered across every display. The traitor who had once opened Earth's gates to the Varn Dominion. Now, somehow, he was alive, bound, in a code, reanimated through Varn tech and something worse, willingness. His voice echoed from orbit, clear and venomous. You think this planet is your weapon, Ken, but it was always mine. He had infiltrated the defense grid, not recently, but decades ago. A worm hidden deep in Earth's fallback systems, waiting for reactivation, and now he was rewriting them. Across Arcane Prime, defense towers turned inward. Drone wings hovered, confused. Omega-6 lay motionless, its systems overtaken by Thorn's signal. Even the ash gates began to flicker, their launch parameters jammed mid-cycle. Alara stood in the control chamber, fist white on the command rail. We never purged the archives after Thorn's betrayal, she muttered. Because we thought he was dead, Idris growled beside her. That was our first mistake. No, Alara said, her voice low. Our first mistake was thinking he ever loved Earth the way we did. The traitor's infection spread fast. Entire bunkers shut down. Reactor cores went dark. Even the synthetic weather began to shift, turning skies into blinding storms to blind orbital fire. Thorn wasn't attacking with force. He was attacking identity. But then, from beneath the old vaults, came an answer, quiet at first. A pulse, a breath of fire and cold iron. The AI that had once governed Earth's final city, Athena Prime, had survived, not whole, not functional, but fragmented, spread across thousands of data nodes like a whisper refusing to die. Now, it began to gather. One by one, memory shards aligned. Voice clips became coherent. Old decisions rebooted. And from the static, a single line cut through. This is Athena. I remember you, Thorn. Alara stared at the display as Athena's signature returned to the grid. It was incomplete, but conscious. Athena, she breathed. You're still here. You called. The voice answered, and I never forgot. Athena had once run the entire Earth defense network before the fall. Now, she was reborn, just enough to fight. I can isolate the viral spine, Athena said, but I need a vector, a willing core to absorb Thorn's presence, to trap him in a closed logic loop. Idris's voice was grim, a suicide firewall. Athena hesitated. Not suicide, sacrifice. There's no difference, Alara whispered. There is, Athena replied softly. When someone remembers your name, the vault doors hissed open. Omega-6, staggered and flickering, had reconnected to the grid. It moved slowly, one arm sparking from Thorn's attack. I can do it, it said. Give him to me. You're corrupted, Idris warned. No, Omega-6 said, standing tall despite the damage. I'm anchored. It knelt before the console. I remember Alara's voice. I remember Earth's skies. And I remember the day you told me to protect the children in Vault 12, even though we were losing. Alara blinked. You remember that? I remember everything. Omega-6 said, and I will not let him erase it. Athena and Omega-6 linked. Thorn's code fought viciously, screaming through the firewalls, twisting memory, spitting lies. But Omega-6 held, and as Thorn tried to rewrite, Omega-6 rewrote him, feeding back every name, every act of betrayal, every screaming civilian left behind. It wasn't just code. It was judgment. Thorn's voice cracked. I gave Earth a chance. You would have all died without me. We did die, Omega-6 replied, but not like you. We died with honor. Then silence. One final burst of white light tore through the system, and Thorn was gone. Omega-6's lights dimmed, then flared once more. Vector successful. System integrity restored. Alara reached out and touched its shoulder. You saved. U.S. I remembered why we were worth saving. Then its core dimmed. Its consciousness faded. But Alara knew. It chose to go. With Thorn gone, the grid surged back online. The ash gates re-engaged. Orbital cannons refocused. Defense drones realigned and opened fire on the Inquisitor fleet. The tide turned instantly. Carriers burned. Frigates split mid-turn. The sky once filled with shadow now erupted in vengeance. Down below, Alara stood in the gate chamber beside. Idris, is it time? He asked. She nodded. We're not sending a warning anymore. She inserted the final code chip, Ragnar message log, Earth Origin Priority 1. We're sending history. Inside the Ashgate payload was more than a weapon. It was the full record of humanity's fall, silence, and rebirth. The truth, the betrayal, the endurance, and the unspoken threat. If you come again, we will not be merciful. The chamber shook as the first payload launched. A white spear through the clouds, carrying Earth's story across the stars. Alara watched it vanish into the black. Now the galaxy will know, she whispered. What it means, Idris said, to make a Deathworld angry. But before the smoke cleared, another signal cut through. A new fleet was entering the system. Not Varn, not Solari, not human. Unknown configuration. And their message was short. We heard your scream. Now we answer with silence. Alara looked to the sky. Josset, whatever came next, they were ready. They silenced planets before, but Earth is not a planet, it's a promise. And promises remember. The unknown fleet emerged from subspace like a spreading shadow. Hundreds of vessels shaped like thorns and spires, silent, unmarked, drifting. Without flare or chatter, they moved like sharks in still water, deadly, patient, ancient. Their first action wasn't to fire. It was to jam the stars. Every comms relay, every long-wave signal, every interstellar link gone. The system went dark. In the command vault, Alara Ken stood at the central holosphere, watching the lights blink out one by one. Idris Harlan cursed as his oopling to the Ashgate armatures dropped. They're cutting the sky from our mouths. He growled. No, Alara said grimly. They're preparing a culling. Without signals, reinforcements couldn't navigate in. Messages couldn't get out. The story they just sent through the ash gates might reach the stars, but they wouldn't see what came next. This enemy was deliberate, silent, efficient. The kind that kills not just life, but memory. One of the ships drifted above the ruins of the central bunker. Its hull opened without sound. A shape dropped from orbit, tall, black armored, walking through kinetic fire like it was rain. It did not speak. It simply pointed. And drone spindly, floating, silver-eyed swarmed from the atmosphere like spores. On wind. Idris and Alara fought side by side, driving back the first wave with Gauss rifles and Earth's oldest defense tech. Each human shot found its mark, but the enemy was different, adaptable. Each fallen drone was replaced by one stronger, faster. They were not attacking to win a war. They were attacking to study. To erase. Down below, Athena's fragmented consciousness burned itself hotter. To keep pace, the AI now lived across hundreds of subnodes, calculating millions of defense vectors per second, keeping the grid alive but barely. These enemies are not Varn, Athena stated. They are older. Unknown data signature suggests pre-fall origin. Pre-fall, Idris barked. How far back are we talking? Before Earth sealed itself? Before we lost the sky? Alara looked toward the rising black structures on the horizon, void glass towers that hadn't been there minutes ago. This wasn't a war. It was a test bed, she whispered. For what? For something that feeds on endings. In the far reaches of the system, Mila Voss had taken her freighter into orbit, trying to broadcast a blind pulse transmission. No lock, no bounce, just a message screamed into the dark. This is Earth origin vessel Echo Flare. We are under coordinated system blackout. Repeat, unknown entities are executing a purge. Then her sensors blinked. Something moved. Faster than light. It didn't fire. It just entered her ship. Back on the surface, Alara received a final signal burst from Mila just for words. They're not machines. They remember us. Then silence. No wreckage. No explosion. Just nothing. The human survivors regrouped in the deeper command tunnels. Omega-6's body lay deactivated nearby, honored, untouched. They were fewer now, wounded, rattled, and still unbroken. Alara stood before them, lit only by the flickering red of failing emergency lights. This isn't just about Earth anymore, she said. This thing, we woke it up, or maybe Thorn did. Maybe even the Varn never knew it slept beneath their throne. What is it? Asked one of the younger fighters. Alara looked upward. I think it's what comes after extinction, Athena. Set one last data burst to Alara's console. Within it, coordinates. Buried beneath Arcane Prime, a vault never listed, pre-grid, pre-war, pre-human. There's a final protocol, Athena said, buried so deep not even Thorn found it. The first defense. And the last? Alara asked. Yes, then. Dig. With explosives and drills stolen from the wreckage, Idris and the team bored into the crust. Down past stone melted by void matter. Down into the bones of the planet. And then they saw it. The core codex. A sealed spire of obsidian and silver, pulsing with ancient light. Human design, but older than any human present. What is this? Idris asked. It's not a weapon, Alara whispered. It's a voice. She approached the pedestal, her palms scanning against warm metal. The vault responded not with fire, but with a recording. A human woman, pale-eyed, scarred, speaking into time. This is Dr. Lyra Ken, founder of the Core Codex Protocol. If you're hearing this, then Earth has failed to die. Good. The Codex is a mnemonic weapon, not designed to destroy your enemy's ships but to destroy their certainty. It speaks to the stars, and it reminds them who we were, that we burned bright, that we bled real, that humanity was never designed to be forgotten. Alara stared at the name, Lyra Ken, her ancestor, her blood. Activated, she said. It may cost the planet, Athena warned. The signal will flood every psychic channel. The core might burn. Arcane may fall. Then it falls proud. As she turned the final key, the world trembled. The sky turned gold. Every drone froze mid-flight. Every ship halted. Even the unknown enemy paused as if listening. Then the voice of humanity spoke not through words, but memory, across the galaxy. Worlds turned toward the sound, not noise, remembrance. Humans lost. Humans broken. Humans crawling through radiation, plague, void, and betrayal, but never bowed, never erased. The mnemonic pulse roared across light years like a tidal wave of soul, and somewhere, out in the dark, the oldest enemy finally hesitated. The last thing they expected was to feel fear, and then the Deathworld made them remember. The core codex pulsed like a heartbeat beneath Arcane Prime, flooding the system with mnemonic resonance. It wasn't a weapon of fire or steel. It was a weapon of truth, the kind that couldn't be jammed, hacked, or silenced. Above, the silent fleet of the ancient enemy faltered. Their machines froze in mid-maneuver. Their algorithms failed to process the emotional gravity of what they were receiving. This was not logic. This was history on fire. They saw Earth not as myth, but as memory. They witnessed trenches filled with screaming soldiers holding lines for cities that no longer existed. They felt the heartbeat of humans in void suits drifting through irradiated storms. They heard lullabies sung in bunkers while orbital fire rained from the sky. And then, they felt rage. Not their own. Ours. The rage of a species that had been betrayed, buried, burned, and still stood. In the command chamber, Alara Ken collapsed to her knees, blood running from her nose. The mnemonic feedback was brutal, even with Athena buffering most of it. They're feeling it, Athena whispered. Even their machines. They didn't evolve to process grief, or guilt, or wrath. Good, Alara choked. Let them drown. In it, in orbit, several of the enemy's vessels began falling out of formation, not destroyed, Not jammed. Deserting. Some simply broke apart implosions caused not by attack, but by systems overwhelmed by recursive feedback from the codexes. Pulse. Others turned their guns and were destroying themselves to stop what was now echoing in every circuit, every neural thread. And still, the pulse grew louder. Idris Harlan stood atop the shattered ridge where this had all begun, plasma rifle cradled in one hand, the blackened sky erupting in light. He watched as one of the enemy carriers broke apart. Above him, raining molten shards into the upper stratosphere. "You wanted to erase us," he muttered. "Now you'll remember us forever." A shuttle landed behind him. The rear hatch opened, revealing survivors from Vault 27, children, elders, scavengers. All of them had come to fight with what little they had left. Idris turned to them. "They're afraid now," he said, "afraid of a story, but not all." The enemy faltered, the largest of their ships, a cathedral-sized dreadnought veined with living metal, descended directly toward the planet's core. It wasn't trying to flee or adapt. It was trying to end the signal, to bury the codex beneath fire and gravity. "Incoming," Athena cried. "It's on a collision trajectory. If it breaches the crust, it destroys everything." Alara finished, staggering to her feet, including us. There was no time to evacuate, no time to counterstrike, but there was still Omega-6. Its frame lay silent near the vault, core inert. Alara knelt beside it, one trembling hand pressed to its chest plate. "You told me you remembered everything," she whispered. "I need you to remember why you were built." She inserted her last command key. "Wake up, soldier." A pause. "Then, you need Omega-6 online." Its optics blinked slowly, a glitch, then clarity. "Situation? We're about to lose the codex, unless someone stops that ship." Omega-6 looked at the schematic Athena displayed. The dreadnought, massing energy for an atmospheric pierce. "Authorization, yours," Alara said. "No protocols. Just choice." The machine stood. "Then I choose." It launched skyward. Seconds later, its jump rockets fired at full overload, heat screaming off its limbs as it pierced the upper layers of atmosphere. The dreadnought loomed like a falling mountain, covered in adaptive armor and plasma shields. Omega-6 did not care. In open sky, the last soldier of Earth collided with the enemy ship mid-fall. The impact cracked shields and sent ripples across. The vessel surfaced. Inside, the enemy tried to react, tried to adapt. Too late. Omega-6 overloaded every internal system, every reactor within its own body, every backup capacitor stored across 3 centuries of war, and with one last transmission. It spoke. "You should have let us sleep." The explosion lit the sky like a second sun. The dreadnought broke apart, its superstructure failing mid-descent. The pieces burned in the upper atmosphere, raining light instead of death. Alara watched from below, jaw clenched, tears streaking. Through soot and blood, he did it. Omega-6 has ceased function, Athena confirmed. "No," Alara whispered. He fulfilled it. Across the system, the enemy fleet began withdrawing. They didn't speak. They didn't retaliate. They simply left, like something ancient that had been wounded for the first time in millennia and didn't know how to bleed. Silence settled. Not fear, not emptiness. Reverence. The codex continued to pulse, now slower, calmer, but permanent. A heartbeat in the dark, a signal that could never again be unwritten. Earth had spoken, and the galaxy had listened. For the first time in 1,000 years, the galaxy fell silent, not from fear, but respect. The skies over Arcane Prime no longer burned. The silence that followed was not hollow but earned. Above, the unknown fleet had withdrawn beyond skin range. Their final message was not a threat, nor a curse. It was a recording replaying Earth's codex signal across galactic channels, on their own encrypted frequency. The very weapon they tried to smother, they now shared. As if to say, "We have heard you, and we will not forget." Alara Kent stood at the Black Ridge where Omega-6 had launched into legend. The ground was scorched glass now. The soil still trembled from residual energy, but nothing stirred in the sky. Not enemy. Not storm. Just peace. In her hand, she held the last message Omega-6 had sent before impact burned into a cracked data ship. "Protect the memory, even if we're gone." She didn't cry. Tears were for those who were lost. This was for those who had become eternal. Idris Harlan emerged from the lower vaults, armor coated in ash, blood still drying on his scalp. He walked like someone who'd expected to die and now didn't quite know what to do with survival. "Athena's stabilizing," he reported. The codex pulse has locked into quantum drift. Even if they destroy the planet, the signal keeps traveling. Forever. Elara looked up at the sky. Then we've already won. At what cost? He asked quietly. She turned to him, eyes tired but clear. The same cost it's always been. One more name on the wall. Weeks passed. The surviving vaults were opened. Children, who had only seen sunlight through simulation, stepped into real dawn. Survivors came out of bunkers and scattered outposts. Guided by echo signals now amplified by Athena's restored consciousness, the Deathworld long feared, long forgotten was awake. And it was alive. They built the memory spire on the highest peak of Arcane Prime, a place where wind carved the stones and stars could be seen. Without scan arrays, its core housed the codex beacon. Around it were engraved the names of every soul who had fought for Earth's voice to be heard again. At the very top was a single phrase: we were broken, but we were never beaten. One by one, the old names returned. Malavas's freighter, limp home scarred, but burning proud. Diplomatic envoys from neutral species arrived quietly, not to conquer, not to claim, but simply to listen. Even the Solari came again, not as warriors, but as witnesses, offering crystalline memory orbs, encoded with Earth's pulse to scatter across the stars. Let this story be told, said the Solari elder, so no one forgets what the Deathworld endured to be heard. Athena stabilized enough to speak in full. Now merged with the remaining planetary networks and echo cores, the planet remains. Fragile, she warned, but no longer silent. And the codex, Elara asked, it will outlive us all. Elara Ken's name became legend. She didn't ask for it, didn't want it. She simply continued rebuilding vault systems, restoring memory archives, helping children learn how to breathe real air and walk on real ground. And when she finally stood alone at the memory spire, looking toward the stars, she pressed a final transmission into the codex. To those who hear this, we do not ask for tribute. We do not seek revenge. We ask only this: remember that we lived, remember that we bled, and remember that we rose. You may forget our names, but you will not forget what it means to be human. The codex continued, drifting encoded across light, gravity, sound, even dreams in some species. They say on distant worlds, children whispered tales of a planet called Earth, one that died and kept speaking. They say, when the stars flicker strangely, it's the Deathworld humming in the background of the galaxy, retelling its story in the voice of fire and memory. And somewhere, deep in the ruins of a blackened ship buried under arcane ice, a cracked AI core flickered once, a single light blinking, remembering. That day, the galaxy learned what it means to be human, and it never forgot again.